All right, guys, I just wanted to give everyone a big NFL update regarding the current playoff scenarios entering Week 16. And we've got some real weather issues as well, probably 5 or 6 games affected by the weather to look at. But let's go over the scenarios, who can clinch, what's going on there. I want to first take a look at the overall picture. You can see Buffalo. They've got that very coveted bye right now. They're tied with Kansas City, but they've got the tiebreaker. So, they're facing Chicago this weekend. There's a very high incentive. I'm guessing both them and Kansas City are going to win and go to 12-3. The current matchups, Miami at Kansas City, the Chargers at Cincinnati. That would be Cincinnati over Baltimore after Baltimore's loss last week to Cleveland. And then you have Baltimore in as a wild card. They would be taking on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Tennessee, of course, at 7-7, really faltering the AFC South. Not good at all. Moving to the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles, even if they lose to the Cowboys, possibly without Jalen Hurts, still look very good for the number 1 overall seed. Minnesota, very polarizing, 11-3, but they've got almost a negative point differential. They're at number 2 right now. They would be facing Washington at home in the first round. You've got the Giants traveling to San Francisco. Be a very tough game for them. And then Dallas at 10-4, unfortunately for them, in the wild card round at Tampa Bay. So at least they get Tampa. That division also is horrible. The Bucs at 6-8, possibly Tom Brady's last year, but we always say that, so who really knows? Moving to all of the tiebreakers. So the situation with the AFC, the Bills can clinch the East officially with a win or a tie, along with a Miami loss. So Miami is 4-point favorites at home. I would assume Miami probably is going to beat Green Bay. I would also think that Buffalo will probably clinch next week because I think they're going to win this week against Chicago. Cincinnati can clinch a playoff berth with a win in Foxborough, 3.5-point favorites over New England, and also a New York Jets loss. They are playing in a pick'em game on Thursday night against Jacksonville. Baltimore can clinch. I'm not even going to go over all of that. The AFC North is going to be really interesting with Baltimore and Cincinnati. It is looking like Cincinnati's going to win it, but Baltimore does get Lamar Jackson back, and they've got a great defense. They're certainly going to be a wild card team, one would expect, if Cincinnati does take the North. And then the Chargers can clinch a playoff berth. They need to win, and they also need a Vegas loss in Pittsburgh. Going to be a very hard game for the Raiders to play in about 10-degree weather. Kenny Pickett is back for Pittsburgh. They would also need a New England Patriots loss, and then possibly a Jets loss or tie. So a lot of situations happening for the Chargers. If you're a Chargers fan, you just got to keep winning. You play on Monday Night Football. You're facing a team that's practically dead. You need to keep winning. Moving to the NFC, Philadelphia can clinch the NFC East division with a win. They will officially clinch, obviously, if they beat Dallas. Even if they lose, possibly without Jalen Hurts, I would still expect them to win that division. They would only have 2 losses. They can clinch home field throughout the playoffs, and also the elusive bye that everyone wants with a win or with a tie and a Minnesota loss. And I think Minnesota might actually lose, guys. The way it looks right now with Minnesota, they're a team that's real streaky, and they're only 3.5-point favorites against a decent Giants team who is playing better. And then also you do have the Giants. They can clinch a playoff berth with a win, coupled with a Commanders loss and possibly a Detroit loss. I would expect the Commanders to lose. They're 7-point underdogs against a really talented San Francisco team. And then Seattle's going to lose. So if the Giants win, they can basically clinch, because I think both Washington and Seattle will lose. Seattle's 9-point underdogs without Tyler Lockett on the road in Kansas City. That is that situation. Now, I do want to look at the weather and see, we're talking about multiple games here being affected in terms of the overall betting, the overall game script, things like that. The Thursday night game, it's rain the entire way through. There's no let up, 100% chance in East Rutherford. 45 degrees, that's miserable, cold, wet rain. And then you also do have winds right around 10 to 15 miles per hour. I would take the under, even though the over-under in that game is already down to 37.5. You've got the game in Chicago. Should be clear, but very windy, 23 and 4 degrees. So that is going to be, both of these teams do operate very well in the cold weather. The Bills with Josh Allen, the dual threat, and also the Bears with, Justin Fields, 1,000 rushing yards. They should both be able to score, but that's brutal. That's a wind chill of like negative 20. You do have the Browns game, 8 degrees. Kickoff time, windy, and they're getting major wind gusts. That's the game. The over-under is sitting at 31.5, or I think it's been bet up to 32.5. I would still take the under. It's going to be miserable. They're talking about wind gusts around 40 to 45 miles per hour, wind chill warning in the Cleveland area. That game's going to be affected. The Texans-Titans game as well. Ryan Tannehill banged up for that one, 12 degrees. I think Houston is just going to roll over. I love the under on this game. They're a dome team playing in 12-degree weather with an 11-mile-per-hour wind. That wind chill is probably going to be at about 0. Yeah, it's just not looking good. Although, listen, if the Titans have to play Malik Willis, I mean, he's clearly not ready, at least not yet. I love the under in that game. Then you've got the Seahawks traveling to Kansas City, 6 degrees and clear, light winds, but love the under in that game as well. When you've got an over-under at 49.5, there is value, especially Seattle, Geno Smith, without Tyler Lockett playing in literal freezing temperatures. That is tough. The game in Foxborough, not horrible, 17 degrees, but we do know the Patriots, and they play really hard, really good defense at home. Everyone loves the under on that game. All the professional bettors do. 14-mile-per-hour winds. This game, pretty cold, 22 degrees, but it is clear. It's the Lions at the Panthers. So Detroit, not great there. A dome team playing in that cold weather. Another situation that's just not good for the Falcons. Desmond Ridder, very young quarterback, playing in 14-degree weather, 16-mile-per-hour winds. I think Desmond Ridder's throwing 3 interceptions. I'll be honest, guys. I don't think it's going to be pretty for Desmond Ridder. All of these games have brutal weather conditions. All of them have double-digit mile-per-hour winds. This is something that's never happened before. And then we get to, California, and it's beautiful, 62 degrees and sunny, 3-mile-per-hour winds. The Cowboys game, how about that? 31 degrees, but it is a dome. I don't know why they have that. Actually, you know what? No, it's got to be a dome in Dallas. Yeah, I was thinking maybe it was a retractable, but trust me, Jerry World is a dome. The Steelers-Raiders game actually looks a little bit better. It's up to 11 degrees, but 15-mile-per-hour winds. And then so that game, honestly, is very bad sign for the Raiders. And everyone's betting the under in that game as well. It'll be really interesting to see how many of these unders actually hit. Because some of these games, the problem is the wind, coupled with the cold temperatures, coupled with some of these teams being dome teams playing in really bad conditions. It's like the Saints, it's the Lions, it's the Falcons, all of those teams, the Texans, all of those teams are dome teams playing in really bad conditions. Packers, Dolphins should be fine. Kind of cold for Miami. 52 degrees, 10-mile-per-hour winds. We've got a dome game here between the Broncos and the Rams. You got to feel bad for people who's calling this game? This is, Baker Mayfield versus Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson, we all know at this point, just having a horrible season. Buccaneers, Cardinals, another dome game, and then another dome game at the end there with the Colts and the Chargers. So many of these 1 o'clock games all going to be affected by the weather in some form or another. It's just going to be freezing. There's just no other way to look at it. It is going to be horrible. And I also do want to take a look at the race for the number 1 overall pick right now. So just looking at it quickly, you got to love the Houston Texans record, 1-12-1. Certainly they're tanking. Certainly they need Bryce Young. Absolutely they're doing the right thing. These games are meaningless. Don't win them. You've got Chicago. Boy, if I'm Chicago, I really ponder trading down and moving down maybe 5 or 6 spots, getting an elite wide receiver for Justin Fields, maybe an elite offensive tackle, and gathering more assets in the process if you move from 2 to 6 or 7, because we do expect Bryce Young to be the number 1 overall pick. Possibly C.J. Stroud, maybe Will Levis if a team wants to trade with Chicago. You've got Seattle getting the number 3 pick, the disastrous Russell Wilson trade. We'll see how that turns out for them. Possibly a quarterback you would expect. I know they were talking about bringing Geno Smith back, but guys, this is like Geno Smith's career year, and they're 7-7. And they have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and they've got a good young rookie running back. So they have weapons, and they're still not very good. You've got the Rams giving up their pick to Detroit. So the Lions picking at number 4, possibly getting a quarterback as well. We'll see what they do with Jared Goff. Arizona, it's just going to completely tank. I would be shocked if they won any more games after the Kyler Murray injury. They need to go 4-13, try and get as high as a pick as possible, starting Colt McCoy right now. Indianapolis needs to do the exact same thing. Try and get yourself into the top 5. It's so funny how everyone was like clowning Indianapolis because they blew the 33-0 lead, but no. That's good. If you're an Indianapolis Colts fan, you should be happy. These games are meaningless. Jonathan Taylor's out for the year. Matt Ryan is retiring. There's no future. You already have a good infrastructure. If I was Indianapolis, I would do anything in my power to lose every game and then try and trade up and get Bryce Young. And you've got Bryce Young in a dome with a good offensive line, with Jonathan Taylor, with Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, maybe Paris Campbell comes back. Now you're building something. You've also got a young tight end. You're building something in Indianapolis. So while everyone clowned Indianapolis, yes, obviously it was bad they blew the lead, but in terms of their future, if I was a Colts fan, I'd be so happy. Next you have Atlanta. Yeah, we don't really know what Atlanta's doing. They took far too long to switch to Desmond Ridder, and I fear what they're going to do is they're not going to get enough data on Desmond Ridder, and they're going to roll with him next year. They're kind of in no man's land picking at number 7. Carolina also in complete no man's land. They've won too many games. They have no other assets. They got some draft picks for Christian McCaffrey, but overall, that's not a great look because they really are depleted in terms of draft picks outside of this pick. So it's like, listen, you need a quarterback. Maybe they try and trade up and get Will Levis. I don't know. Philadelphia picking at number 9. They get New Orleans pick in the Chris Olave. They moved up to get Chris Olave. They gave up their first round pick to Philadelphia. What a great trade that was for Philly, getting possibly a top 10 pick. And then you also do have Vegas right now kind of bickering with Jacksonville and Houston, who gets Cleveland's pick. Look at all these teams at 6 and 8. My goodness. I'm guessing that it'll be interesting. All these teams are just clustered together, but overall, Vegas right now with the 10th pick, at this point, you got to get a new quarterback, man. Come on. Have we not done the Derek Carr thing long enough? You'd think we would have, but so that is we're expecting Houston to get the number 1 overall pick. Chicago, I don't know the entire rest of their schedule, but really what Chicago fans should want, you want to see improvement from Justin Fields, but you do want to lose these games. I'm being honest. You've seen the improvement. Justin Fields is your future, at least your short-term future in terms of next year, keeping, still developing him. Lose these games, try and get as high of an asset as you can, trade it down, get a bunch more draft picks, and really rebuild your entire offense. That's what I would do if I was Chicago, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do want to take a look at the playoff chances here next. And we can see several teams have already clinched playoff berths. We've got the Bengals, a virtual lock, along with the Ravens. The Giants, 86% chance. Chargers, up over 80% chance. Buccaneers at 72% chance in a bad NFC South. And also the Dolphins, 72% chance to be a wild card team. The Titans and the Jaguars right now bickering in the AFC South. Titans at 7-7, Jags at 6-8. And you know, the Titans have a very easy matchup this weekend versus Houston. We'll have to see if Ryan Tannehill plays, but you would think it would be kind of fun to see Trevor Lawrence and that Jacksonville team in the playoffs, but I mean, I would probably say, listen, I think Tennessee is a total fraud. Tennessee really probably should have like 9 or 10 losses at this point when you look at some of their close early season wins. You've got Detroit sitting at 41% chance, the Commanders at 35%, Seahawks outside chance looking in. Hilarious, man. The Carolina Panthers in that horrible division, they're not making it, goodness. The Jets at 21% chance. They need this win over Jacksonville. And then you have the Patriots. Really need a home win as an underdog versus Cincinnati this weekend. The Packers need several things. I know they need Washington to lose out. They need to win out. And then they need another team to lose 2 games. And then the Raiders, Falcons, Saints, and the Browns all need basically miracles to have a chance at the playoffs. Also, the Steelers and Colts technically are not eliminated, but all these teams we can pretty much say are gone. And really the only teams with realistic chances would be the Patriots, Jets. I would say no to Carolina. You know, you could put Seattle in there, but if they lose to Kansas City, it's very hard. The Commanders have a very tough game this week in San Francisco. The Lions have a great opportunity in Carolina, very winnable game. Jacksonville has a winnable game versus the Jets. So we will see, but that's the overall percent chance each of those teams make the playoffs. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.